a day without a woman. Thousands of women skipped work today and instead participated in marches and other events they described as feminist. The official Twitter account for the Women's March on Washington in January proudly tweeted that women birth half the population.
A day without a woman is a day without me. Shut it down!
We know our value, and we know that America doesn't function without us.
When women succeed, the world succeeds.
Well, our first guest is the executive editor of Bustle.com, a women's website that shut down today to show solidarity with women. Julie Alvin joins us now. Julie, thanks for coming on.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So I just heard that woman say at the march, women have value and America doesn't function without them, and I think every person agrees with that. And the species dies actually without them. I completely agree, and I think I understand this march to be an attempt to show that women have value and are impressive, something that obviously I agree with. But if you want to show that you're impressive, shouldn't you do something impressive, like, I don't know, cure a disease or fix the debt crisis or do a really good job at work? Taking the day off is not impressive. Anyone can do it. How does this make the point exactly?
Well, I think that, the point of this is to show the impact that women have on the economy and that women have, in the workplace. And one of the best ways to do that is to show what it would be like if women were not present, if women were absent. I also think that, this wasn't a day where women were sitting around twiddling their thumbs. Bustle,
Right.
in particular, really encouraged readers and encouraged our staff to take the day to spend time volunteering for women in marginalized communities, for women who are underprivileged, for women who are unable to strike today. We encourage women to call the representatives. We encourage women to donate to causes that support women. And, this wasn't a day, of fun. This was a day of action. And it was a day
Right.
of specifically serving women and serving the needs of women in the interest of, supporting women's equality. So
Right.
I think all those things are very impressive.
I can see that, but if the point is to show that women are needed in the workplace, and obviously they are, women prepared the show that you're watching right now, then why not do like an extra good job at work to show you're valuable at work? If you want to show people, boy, you couldn't live without me, then act in a way that makes them think that.
I think that protests and strikes historically have been a way to show the impact that people have on certain workplaces and certain environments by being absent and by showing, if you're not going to value me as much as you should, if you're not going to pay me equally, if you're not going to, protect me from sexual harassment in the workplace, if you're not going to offer me paid leave, this is what it would be like if I did not participate in this economy in general. And sometimes the greatest way to show impact is to show absence. And I think that this is actually more effective than you're giving it credit for. And, strikes historically have been enormously effective in showing the value of the people who are striking.
Yeah, some have, some haven't, but the ones that have a very specific set of demands tend to succeed, and the ones that are amorphous tend not to succeed. So I went on the website, Day Without a Woman, to try and figure out what this was about, and one of the things I learned is that you're supposed to avoid shopping except at women and minority-owned businesses. In other words, if the business is owned by a white man, you can't shop there. You shouldn't shop there. Why the hostility toward white men? What do they have to? Why white men exactly?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily hostility towards white men. I think it's more about being supportive towards women and towards minorities who are historically disenfranchised in this country, who are paid less, who are not treated as well in the workforce, who don't have stability in the workforce. So I don't think that this is about punishing white men. I think that it is about supporting women and people of color.
Well, sure. If you're boycotting white men, it's obviously an attack on white men. But that's not true, actually. So if you look at household median income, the top 3 slots are not white men. They're all people of color. I think the number 1 is Indians, and number 2 is Taiwanese, and the third is, I think, Filipino. So actually, white men are not making the most money in this country. I don't know if you've checked the numbers. So it's a little bit weird to say boycott white businesses, white male-owned businesses, when they're not the most successful. What is that about?
I think that if you were to look at the statistics, it is largely white men that are positions of power, as far as CEOs, as far as people in, power at various businesses, as far as people who hold the majority of leadership positions, who hold the majority of CEO positions for Fortune 500 companies. So, traditionally and historically and factually today, white men are in better positions when it comes to, workplace equality than.
But that's not actually true. Historically, yeah, I think that's right. But if you want to speak historically, so the Department of Labor ranks this by ethnicity, and historically it was a country settled by British settlers. So if you run down the list, British Americans, English Americans, the number 41 for income. I'm not saying, white people are successful. They are, but it's much more complicated than that. And so why not acknowledge that, I guess?
I think that we're kind of getting off of the point here, Tucker. I think that the point of today is about women's equality, and if we're talking about if we're talking about where women stand in today's economy,
right.
The U.S. is 28th best as far as gender equality goes in the world. They're 60th best as far as gender empowerment goes for women in the world. So,
right.
Maybe I can appeal to your patriotism on this point. I don't want the U.S. to be 60th best in anything, or 28th best in anything.
Well, I don't either,
I want us to be the best at this.
It depends what the measurements are. I mean, come on.
Well, anything depends what the measurements are. These are from the World Economic Forum as the statistics that I'm stating.
But I mean, what does that even mean? But I'll throw it out for you that I think is interesting. So for younger women entering the workplace, there was a recent survey done in the 150 biggest cities in the United States, and in 148 of them, young women in their 20s entering the workforce made more than their peers, their male peers. So things are changing. I mean, boys graduate from high school at lower rates, from college at lower rates, and young men, unmarried, childless young men, make less in cities than comparable women. So, that's good. You should be happy about it, right?
Well, I think that there's absolutely progress being made. I will not deny that at all. Those are things that I'm very excited about.
Were you aware
I think if you
of
were
that?
to look, I was aware of that. And I think that if you look at, the Pew Research studies, they actually say that while the gender pay gap is smaller, it's 93 to 100, it's still there. And I think that another thing that's an important point here is the fact that, women typically encounter these sort of reductions in their access to higher paying positions and leadership roles at later stages in their career. So while they may start out equally.
Can I say one thing? Okay, I know, but look, here's just the bottom line for me. I don't have a lot of time, but I just want to get your reaction. All the women in my life, and I live with 4 of them, they're powerful. And the presupposition behind what you're doing is that women are weak, they're victims, they're put upon by men. That's not the experience of the women who I know.
I don't think that we are saying that we are weak. I think that we're showing our strength today, and we're showing our strength in standing up for, women's equality in general, and standing up for women who are not lucky enough to be able to strike today, and standing up for women. It's International Women's Day. There are 62 million girls worldwide who don't have access to education. We're standing up for all women, and so, I love to hear that the women in your life are strong, empowered women, and that you respect them. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But that might not be the case in all households, and that's certainly not the case in all countries.
Julie, thanks a lot for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.